Dudacek, you're new to our scrum. Why don't you take us away?
All right. Well, I wanted to ask you if you think that the comments that Gary Bettman made yesterday might be prejudicial to the outcome of this, because certainly there appears to have been a massive backlash against the things that he said to the Chamber of Commerce.
Well, I think that perhaps Mr. Bettman was not as well briefed as I would have liked to have been in that situation. And I know that he met with some members of my senior administration today and was informed about the very thoughtful framework that Council passed unanimously and the enormous amount of work and money that the city is spending to analyze the one-page letter that we've received from the Calgary Flames. I'm not sure that he fully understood the depth of commitment to that analysis and to public consultation that the city is showing.
Were you able to, from the response to this, get a sense of what the public thinks? Because it feels like it really struck a chord, and based on what Rick's hearing, the people that have contacted me, there are a lot of people that oppose this in principle.
The vast majority of calls that we've received on this since August, have been opposed to the funding model. I think most people say that a new arena and fieldhouse would be nice for Calgary, but the discussion we have to have is precisely how much public funding does that require. And that's been the interesting thing about this, is that certainly even in the last couple of days, and certainly I should say in the last 24 hours, there's been a lot of discussion on it, and certainly my view of that has been that people have a lot of questions. I never thought I would have a column in the Hockey News praising the fact that I am willing to ask questions of the NHL Commissioner. That's not what I thought the Hockey News would say. So yeah, I think that, but here's the thing. I mean, this is the most important part of this, and this is what I was getting at a bit snarkily yesterday, which is that in other cities, these sorts of deals are presented to the public as a fait accompli, with a gift-wrapped ribbon on them. And that is not how we've chosen to operate. That's not how Council, in public, unanimously decided to move forward. The idea here is that we're going to let the public in. There's going to be no question about where the funding is coming from. There's not going to be any mystery about that, and we'll really look hard to get public input on all of this. Now, that said, the beginning of that, the first step of that, has to be to determine whether the site that the Flames picked, not the city, the Flames picked, even works at all. We have to know what the level of the environmental contamination is. We have to figure out how much it would cost to fix that. If we're using a community revitalization levy tool, we have to figure out if there's even enough money in the CRL to clean up the pollution, let alone to have a surplus in order to invest in anything. So those are all questions that we're working on right now, and we won't be able to answer those until we've had some real economic, and I should say some real environmental analysis done, and we're expecting a report back on that in April.
How do you account for the public? How do you account for the great public pushback? I'm getting all kinds of emails from people who say, you know what, I often don't agree with the mayor, but on this one, he's 110% right.
It's certainly not unanimous one way or the other. Certainly during the first intermission of the hockey game last night while I was in council, my Twitter exploded with a bunch of people saying the opposite. I don't know why that might have happened during the first intermission of the hockey game last night. That said, it's a good public debate, and I love good public debates, and that's, I think, really the difference going to be on this one going forward is we'll listen to the public on this. We're not just going to present them with something.
Is there a possibility of a referendum or a plebiscite on this? Do you believe that this is the type of issue that there should be an actual vote on it, or is it enough to have people come to council, make their arguments, and then allow their elected representatives to make the decision?
Oh, you're going to get a really good answer from me on that, which is I don't know.
Okay.
Because, I generally believe that we were elected to do a job. On the other hand, when there are things that really are inflaming people's passions, then we need to make sure we're engaging them in a really thoughtful way. Now, remember that under Alberta law, we can't do a referendum. You can only do a plebiscite. And so a plebiscite is always non-binding, and it's very, very expensive. So, over the course of the next months, we'll get a good sense of what the public's desire for that is. And if it's something that the public says, look, we want a direct say in, that's something we can look at. But there are lots and lots of different ways to engage and lots of different ways to get a sense of what the public is thinking as well.
Because if you followed the model of a plebiscite, it would make it an election issue probably in 2017, which would really focus public attention even more.
That's okay.
Yeah, that's
right.
what I mean.
I would suggest that if there is no decision made, yes or no, prior to 2017, it's going to be an election issue anyway.
Right.
The question is, do you have to have a question on the ballot
Right.
for it to be an election issue? So I don't know. I mean, I would hope that we would have an answer to this question in advance of that. I'm not really interested in 2 years of analysis of this, but let's wait till the spring and see what happens.
You had members of your staff in that meeting with Gary Bettman and senior administrators this morning. Do you think he has a better understanding of where the city's at and he's more confident heading back home?
I wouldn't presuppose to speak for him, and I don't know anything about his confidence level. But I would say that I asked my colleagues at the city to be very, very clear on what was happening.
One last question.
How would you?
I probably missed this, but I just need to know, do you regret what you said yesterday?
Why would I? Thank you.